No. 3766. I think it's for the,
Was it just for?
it's for the water authority. There. Yeah. Or, yeah, one's for well, and then one's for the storm sewer on your street. I think applications just, yeah, they just look for letters of support. Well.
Okay. Let's get started. Call the Brook Planning Commission meeting, March 27th to order. Begin with the approval of the minutes from the February meeting. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the February 27th, 2025 meeting.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion and second. Are any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes for February 27th, 2025, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, we'll move on to our public comment section. Remind everyone that it's unless you're presenting something that's on the agenda, this will be a 3-minute time period, and there is only one public comment section, so it can be on any time. All right? Any public comments? Not seeing any requests to speak, so we'll move on to our subdivision land development applications. The only one we have on the agenda for this evening is the City Park solar array at the Northern Chester County Municipal Authority. I'd like to turn it over to Jen to, unless they're going to present first.
They're going to present first. If you remember a few months back, they came before you. This is principal solar energy system on the sewer authority property at the end of Danton Road. They had come before you with their variance application.
They're different than these here?
So they did obtain their zoning variance to have 2 principal uses on a single lot. So they've now submitted their land development plans. And this is their first review. So they'll present the plans, and then I'll go through the key review letter comments, and they or I can answer questions you have depending on what they're related to. So
I'll introduce myself. My name is Zachary Schreier. I'm the Department of Capital and the Senior Director of Development. I'm here with Chris Texaco, GH Engineers. They're our engineer of record. So we're proposing for land development, there's a 2.7 megawatt AC solar facility on the agricultural side of the Northwestern Chester County Municipal Authority. Currently, there's a sewer treatment facility plant there. And want to kick it off, any questions, comments which the board may have for us?
could you, since they have the plans, can you like tilt your board so that the audience can see it? And then the PC can kind of follow along.
There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, sure.
Do you want me to present anything to the audience, or?
Does anybody have any questions on what they've said to this point? Okay, no, go ahead, you can continue.
Yeah, no, it's just that it's a 2.7 megawatt AC facility. It's a tracker system, so it follows the sun from east to west. There's 27 inverters. There's a central equipment pad. Coming off the road here along the north side of these water ponds, and then following in where we built it out and installed it right. Besides that, it's a really simple installation. There's really not much more to add on my end of things.
All right. Chris, do you have anything you want to speak to before we go into the review letter?
Yeah, just for information and familiarity with the site, our company did the survey as well as the wetlands delineation, streams, for wetlands. I don't believe there were any wetlands on the site. It's an existing cropland, and the access is going to be a shared access with the existing wastewater treatment plant, and then we're proposing, I'm just trying to get a width of the road here, approximately 15-foot wide road, might be 12 feet, I have to double check that. Into the center of the facility, there are turnaround and parking areas just for safety's sake for the vehicles that are going to be maintaining this facility on a long-term basis. There is an existing sanitary easement highlighted in green on the plans going from the wastewater treatment plant. And what you see on the plans, these odd squiggly lines that are blue lines parallel to the contours are erosion control trenches and infiltration trenches for promoting sheet flow across the site. And they basically act as level spreaders to just spread the stormwater out in a natural way. And then there's one stormwater detention basin proposed on the western side of the site. It's like going to become like a stormwater / rate control and volume control infiltration basin. The existing site is surrounded by, approximately half of it is surrounded by existing wooded screening. And I understand there's a residence to the southeast side of the site that we can discuss further, perhaps requirements for screening there. But generally, on the north and northwestern side of the site is existing wooded screening. It's going to be surrounded by an 8-foot high fence. In some locations, we're going to look at utilizing the existing fence where it meets the code requirements. And that's a general overview of the layout.
Does the planning commission have any comments initially before we go through the review letter?
So the stormwater is just for the infiltration and rate control basin, is just for your facility, or does it take into any of the impervious that is existing with the sewage treatment facility?
It's only for the proposed construction for this facility, for this solar facility, which the impervious calculations are basically the proposed access road, not including the panels. So just for the new construction of the access for the solar facility and the solar facility itself.
And the infiltration trenches that you have paralleling the contours,
Yes.
so they're going to be exposed stone. They're going to be like stone domes with, and then
Right, and
That
they actually
piping.
serve as like a gear through the top because
for
there's like store between each trench. That ground area between them almost serves as like an
that'll be grass.
overlay.
Is that grass?
Yeah, it's meadow, right?
It'll be meadow.
Yeah,
in the
it'll
final
be
test.
meadow, but then it won't just, to kind of force it to go into the infiltration trenches and slow it down as it runs down the slope. Those trenches are domed up above ground level.
And they get wider as it goes. You can plan on see that.
Yes.
And where does the piping that's in there, does that go anywhere?
In the trenches themselves,
Yes.
it's just additional storage lengthwise parallel with the trench.
And
I have to get the detail, but sometimes we propose piping and sometimes we just have stone.
right, so
It
there's,
shows an outlet pipe.
yeah, trenches 1 and 2.
Oh, I'm sorry, outlet pipe.
Yeah, trenches 1 and 2, that go to drain point 2 on the northern side, they are proposed to have a discharge pipe that interconnects the trenches, it's these two. But in talking with them about some of the stormwater comments today, they will likely, for the trenches, this way, the site kind of has a high point in it, so the row of like 5 or 6 trenches on, if you're looking at your page, towards the bottom of the page, those drain, we'll just call it towards the bottom of the page, and then the upper half of the site drains upward. So that series of trenches on the lower end, right now they weren't proposed to have exiting pipes out, they were just kind of going to fill and what could infiltrate and come back up. But some of those trenches didn't have much of an infiltration rate in them, so they'll likely be looking to put the same type of connective discharge pipes in those to make those an interconnected system as well.
And where do they discharge to?
They ultimately drain overland,
And they will-
you know, in a sheet flow condition, and
They will come out the bottom?
ultimately, yeah,
Would they
because
want to come out higher?
on the southern end, as they know, our ordinance and DEP, they'll allow those panels themselves to not be considered impervious as long as the surrounding ground condition underneath is pervious. In this case, they have the meadow planet. So in that southern land area, going down, it doesn't include that access drive that's in the upper area. So it really doesn't have much new impervious to handle. So it's just those trenches on that side, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, they're kind of intended just to slow the water down there.
Correct.
You know, they do meter some of the flows down, but it doesn't need a full stormwater facility on that side because it really doesn't have a large amount of new impervious to meter on that southern end.
Yeah, there's really not going to be any significant concentrated flow. The only concentrated flow is going to be the slow release of within the pipe system of those trenches. Since some of the infiltration test results didn't infiltrate, so we have to have a way and means for the stormwater to exit the system rather than just pool there. But the design is intended to be either slow release or sheet flow off of the site in a non-erosive way.
So you probably have that addressed in the concern. Why I was asking about where pipes go, and so it's going to sheet flow across here and
Yeah.
not go onto this neighboring property.
Right, it ultimately, most likely, the last ones that come in will not have connected pipes, and those will just surface fill up and then discharge through the stone layer at the top, and to be made in sheet flow condition, like the current condition, which doesn't have a
And the grass,
concentrated point of interest.
and what you're going to plant there is like a low growth, no mow type seed mix
Low
that'll,
maintenance, like meadow.
you don't have to mow, it'll just kind of stay a certain height.
We will a little bit, but after eventually it'll just kind of naturally grow out and stay at a certain height.
That's all the questions I have for right now.
Does anybody else in your PC have questions before I go over the review letters?
So this site is getting completely, is it like all the, you're gonna go in and, is there a lot of site work to be done? Is it pretty flat, or you're just going in and,
Pretty flat.
what's getting farmed there now, do you know?
What's Gaming Farm?
Yeah, corn or?
I'm not certain. I'm not certain.
I know it's fairly east for cropland, and then having approval and everything else, it would need for the solar.
There's very limited grading, they're more or less installing those contours on grade, so there's a little bit of grading associated with the access road going in and then directing the flows. There's culvert pipe under the access road to get into the basin. But there's substantial area where the solar arrays are going themselves. Those will be just installed following grade contour, and all their stormwater trenches are actually like in line with contour. So there isn't a significant amount of grading or disturbance
Yeah, because
there.
I'm thinking until that meadow gets established, you could have a lot of issues with the runoff.
Yeah, I mean, they'll have their erosion and sediment control plan that gets reviewed by the Conservation District and DEP in conjunction with the NPDES permit, you know, that they'll have to account for, but it is a gentler grade through there, and, you know, planning with Meadow actually has a lower runoff coefficient than cropland, so just that conversion from a stormwater standpoint from cropland to Meadow, once it's established.
Yeah, that's, I think once
You
it's
know, we'll approve
established.
it, but yeah,
Yeah.
they'll have to have measures in place during, construction, you
Right.
know, for that, so.
But you're not gonna go in and grade the site. You're gonna put your structures in
Yeah,
an
accurate.
existing grade.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the only disturbance will be just, you know, just bringing the equipment in to put the piles in, you know, the ground. There's not gonna be any excavating or anything. It's just incidental, hires and equipment.
You're removing the woodlands, all of the woodlands? It's on the property currently?
no, there's a small, I think sheet 2 or 3 of the plan set. Erin has like a little shaded pink area.
Right.
Oh, the top there?
Just for the basin, there's just a small area in the corner of the limit of disturbance that was cleared for the construction of the stormwater management facility.
So that whole section of woods.
Yeah, right over here, a portion of this one comes out.
So this is all staying. So it's just that patch.
Yeah, I
So
think it's
there-
just a portion of that patch.
Yeah, there's still remain a significant wooded buffer outside of that until the property line, on that side.
Any other questions at this moment? Getting the review letter, from a zoning ordinance standpoint, as I noted in the beginning, they did get the variance to have 2 principal uses on the lot. They mentioned earlier, there's no floodplain or wetlands, on the property, it's just that small patch of woodlands being removed. A few of these items within zoning are more notes on the plans, you know, just to clarify if there's any outdoor storage, need for dumpsters, noting what the maximum allowable height of the meadow, you know, will be, so it doesn't get allowed to run out of control. Couple clarifications on the fence, as he noted, if the existing fence that surrounds the property can meet, you know, the height requirements, then it can be used, but we just ask for details of that existing fence so we can ensure where new fence needs to be placed. And then a couple other ones going into 8 and 9, there are requirements for principal solar energy systems about if there's inverters and other battery equipment, so they just need to provide that information. Number 9 is it must be serviced by an adequate water supply for firefighting purposes. So they'll need to submit these plans to the fire department for their review, both of the access to the facilities and ensuring they've come to an agreement on the water supply. The balance of zonings, a couple other notes of what needs to go on the plans about commissioning, and then I know Christie in your packets, she cut out 15 and 16 from my letter, which were inadvertent carryovers. So from my discussions with them earlier, everything under zoning they can comply with. Moving into the Saldo comments, during the zoning hearing review process, Planning Commission indicated this could be reviewed as a minor land development plan, so it's submitted as a combined preliminary final plan. They'll do an improvements agreement for the required stormwater and E&S improvements. Number 3 is, notes for the plans and just clarity on them, just to make it more clear. What's the erosion controls, what are the stormwater controls, separate the plans a little bit. Couple things for the Planning Commission. There may be a few waivers that they'll be requesting. So tonight, they're just asking for general feedback. On those, you won't necessarily be giving formal recommendations on them. I believe their intent is to revise the plans to clean up the letter and come back here, but they do want to get just some feedback on a few items from you so that when they come back, the plans are generally what you're looking for. So one of the waivers would be, number 6 under Saldo would be for the access drive back to the solar panels and the 2 parking spaces that they're proposing back there to be gravel and not be paved. As you know, they're utilizing the existing sewer authority access off of Danton Road and through their property and tying into that. Number 8 under Saldo is the Planning Commission determines landscaping for minor land developments. So I passed out an aerial at the beginning of the meeting. There are I gave them to Gary to pass out at the beginning of the meeting.
And just for the record, Gary didn't do it.
So, it's mostly surrounded by ag properties. The only residential one, so on the aerial, kind of to the right of the lagoons that you see on the sewer authority property, that is a larger parcel, but it does have, a house and some ag properties, a house and some ag buildings, on it. But the remainder of everything surrounding there is generally, open agricultural fields. So I don't know if the Planning Commission on those 2 waivers for the Saldo, well, 1 waiver for the Saldo regarding the gravel access drive, and then any comments on landscaping, just what your general thoughts are.
You want that now?
Yeah, if you have some before I move on to the stormwater comments, it just keeps the sections.
Has anyone had any discussion with the property owner that Jen was talking about that's adjacent?
Not yet.
So they're not aware that this is coming? They have to be aware because they were notified.
They would have been
for the year.
notified.
Correct. It was
for the
notified,
hearing.
we haven't had a one-on-one conversation.
So my opinion is that whatever landscaping you have to do to satisfy them,
Yep.
that's what you should do.
I would agree with that.
But these are protected, there's a lot of trees in this one, but they're gonna have some exposure there.
Yeah, my thought,
because
if
it's-
anything that I looked at was from this house, this view shed, just, slight angle of what they would see, maybe, plant right across, in here a little bit, just to shield the view.
But these things follow the sun, right?
Correct.
So if we're looking at about, the north line kind of runs
On an angle.
on an angle
almost
across the
45.
lagoons. Yeah, you're probably right. You want to shield that.
Yeah, I think just off the corner of the house, like not necessarily all the way down the property line, but I like your suggestion that ultimately they provide something from, a landscape plan and then a signed document from that landowner that says we're agreeable to, the landscaping shown on this plan, just to make sure it's carried over.
But you mentioned earlier about the glare. And that should be taken into account when you're talking to them about the shielding is when it's facing east early in that needs to be considered.
Yep.
Because even though you say they don't have a glare, I'm sure they have glare.
We can definitely run that.
But what if they don't see that until after the panels are installed?
When they apply for a building permit for solar panels, and this goes for large systems like this, or the simple ones that people put on their roofs or in their yards, the township has a glare certification that they must sign, that basically and it has to be signed by both the landowner and the installer, that basically says if glare issues arise, they're responsible for coming in and fixing them. And we've used that and addressed that for an issue down in Bradley Wine Preserve, down on the other side of the township before, so,
This
So
is
they do
actually
that
built
with
into
their
the lighting,
Yes.
interfere with your operation of the panel.
It depends how far setback it is. We could model that to see.
Yeah, I mean, so you have to have a list of trees that will be too high, so it would interfere with your operations.
What is the height of the panels?
That's 12 feet.
12 feet?
Yeah, roughly.
When they're flat, 12
Yeah,
feet?
like
And
they're sitting at me.
then when they rotate, how high would they be, like full
A
tilt?
little over that, I don't know the exact number.
So they
It's
don't
follow the grade a little bit.
So they don't rotate, like how much?
They
Just-
rotate about 36 degrees each side, yeah. That's a general number.
okay. Any comments on the use of gravel for the driveway? Do you just want to talk a little bit, I know you talked about this at the zoning hearing discussion, but, once these are constructed, what the traffic,
Yeah.
needs are for that?
It's gonna be minimal at most, usually quarterly, we do O&M, which is just general maintenance, checking on inverters, or switchgear, transformers, measurements that we're gonna do, make sure everything's operating efficiently. We also can remotely monitor it too, so we can check and make sure, that everything's operating as it is. But we'll come in and do quarterly site walks, make sure there's not anyone that's visually astray. And, besides really getting the metal mix established, after that, you have some basic landscaping, but, it's minimal. The kind of beauty of all this solar is that once it's actually constructed and established, there's not consistent traffic going in and out.
Is it hard to get the meadow to establish when there's not a lot of sun?
It's become more and more commonplace for these solar arrays to have that. So the seed mixing gets more and more refined, and now it's like basically everybody in the industry, that's what they really need for, plan for the site.
So, quarter,
Yeah.
there's one vehicle or a couple
I
vehicles
would
every
say
3 months.
vehicle every 3-4 months, yeah.
Once it's established.
Yeah.
So if you come in there after the day it rains, you don't have to worry about dust.
Yeah.
I'm not sure dust is a big concern. There's that few trips anyways.
Yeah, it's like at most, it's like a truck,
Will there be like ongoing maintenance of the gravel though? You're talking about, what is this, a 30-year?
Yeah, and that would be kind of like in the O&M of it all, right? So like if we're doing a quarterly visit, checking on stuff, and we see that maybe there's like a divot or whatnot, or part of the road needs to be cleaned up and fixed, then we can take that as well. It's not just the solar structure in itself.
Right.
It's crossing contours.
This is a little bit, I can see it all profile sheet, it's a pretty mild grade. All that stuff.
Yeah, I was just looking where that goes and it's kind of going across the contours. So
Yeah,
that's-
there's a profile from sheet 5.
So we're not, what about the other property owner that, like, down at the bottom? We don't get any feedback from them?
Yeah, that's up to you, I mean, you can certainly
You
include
say
that in your
about
recommendation.
22,871A?
No, she's saying 22,762.
Yeah.
The farm field.
Oh, okay.
62.
It looks like
It's not
there's,
just a strip. Yeah, isn't that just a strip?
part, yeah, 62, part of it's a strip, and then where it goes up and bends, has that bend in the property line. Yeah, that's what then, so. Yeah, really only area 1 inch is 400 feet, so from their property line, that width of that strip that you talked about, Melissa, Melissa, sorry, these new seats are throwing me off. Is about 400 feet to that next property, so. I would think in your landscaping comments, you could certainly ask for the same thing from.
I would reach out to them.
I think it's an eyesore, you know what I mean, in a lot of ways, so I think that we should ask
Okay,
any of the neighbors
all right.
if they'd like, maybe they don't want to have a strip.
So if you give them free
There's a farm
electricity
lane.
that comes
A farm.
off these panels, they might be pretty cooperative with what kind of plans that they want to do.
All right, so in terms of landscaping, you guys are thinking the 3 adjacent ones, 22.8-8, which is the one with the house, 22.762, which is the one at the bottom, and then 22.761, even though it looks like they have some trees through there. You should probably do all 3 that are bordering that area.
For them to have an input.
It's almost going to be something that once it's in, you'll be able to tell where the areas are that you need to have. So maybe you're willing to be a little flexible, so like once you're completely done with your installation, if somebody has an issue that it's affecting their view.
Yeah, no, 100%, that's typically what them impacts, like, there's a few select parcels that may, where they may be affected, but you're not 100% sure either, right? Having those conversations, but also like walking through it with them and looking, and if there's, some landscape that needs to happen, then having that conversation and taking action on it.
Yeah, I was definitely looking at like.
Yeah, I think we should, yeah, I'll talk to Beth about exact wording, but we should probably have some initial from them, and then a clause that lets it go back and, to give them a timeline within 60 days of the
Yeah.
completion of this,
Included
That's what
in
it is.
the escrow, and then after that 60-day period,
yeah.
that you can give them money that's set aside.
Yeah,
for
I'll work with the
back-
solicitor to come up with, what would be feasible, so. Okay, and then from what I heard, it seemed like it's the minimal traffic, gravel was acceptable. Nobody seemed to have an issue with that for the access drive and 2 parking little spaces.
I think it's fine. It's just that if you say when you go in there every quarter, you'll take a look at it, and if there's any erosion in there, you'll take care of it.
Yeah, you guys should just have a note on the plans, basically, that,
Well,
as part of our quarterly inspection, the access drive, will be
Sure,
restored.
it's in the
Yeah.
proper order,
Mhm.
yeah.
I have a thing to bring up about the access road. When you talk about dust-free material, dust-free material would be like number 57 stone. Is there any leeway as far as using a different material, like it's typical modified 2A gravel or PennDOT 2A? It's got more fines in it and it's
Mhm.
a better packable surface.
Yeah, I think you can.
It's pretty
I think
standard.
it's generally the wording in the ordinance is, generally dust-free surface, and it says it shall be met with paving unless otherwise allowed by the board. So we allow that in there, but I think something like that with the very minimal use, like we know that dust wouldn't necessarily be an issue, because it's not going to be driven on constantly.
Definitely, it should be modified, and then you'll roll it, you'll compact it when you put it down. So
Yeah, like that number 57.
It just pushes it around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not very good stable material.
Yeah,
That's a wash line. But you want to modify it.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted,
As long as it's put down, your sub base is strong,
yeah,
and it's put down a roll, you should be okay. And you need to determine the thickness, man.
yeah,
Probably minimum 6.
right.
yeah, probably just keep washed out, and you just note in your detail, you know, that it needs to be compacted.
You thinking a 2A modifier, not a 3A?
I'm thinking a 2A,
Yeah.
or that's pretty standard material,
Yeah,
cost effective, and
yeah, should hold up, so. Okay, so that's the Saldo comments. In terms of stormwater management, we had a discussion before this meeting this afternoon, after they had a chance to review the review letter. Overall, I think based upon our discussions, they feel fairly confident they can meet all of our requirements that are in there with just a few slight changes to the existing facilities. Once they update their calculations, they'll determine the exact waivers that they need, but a couple just to get feedback on that may arise. One, there's a couple swales, and I think they're the ones leading up to the culvert pipes that go under the driveway. There's 2 culvert pipes, and there's a swale between the 2 pipes, and then from the end of the pipe into the infiltration basin. Those may have a 2-to-1 side slope instead of 3-to-1, which our ordinance requires, and the interior basin side slope may go to 2-to-1. They think they can achieve 3-to-1. Same thing with the diversion berm on the upper end. So they're going to try to make 3-to-1 wherever they can, but just if they run into grading issues, they wanted feedback on if the slopes went to 2-to-1 in limited locations. And also with regard to the swale, our ordinance calls for a minimum slope of 2%, and they have a minimum 1% proposed in some areas, so.
So where the slope is steeper than 3-to-1, would you plant that with the low grow no mow? So it doesn't have to be maintained? 2-to-1's a little tough to maintain.
yeah, I mean, I personally don't think we have any issue doing the 3-to-1. Yeah, we can accommodate that. Yeah, it'd be a little bit difficult to mow it with like a 0 turn, so we should keep it with a low material.
Help me understand why that swale slope needs to be 1%. Where exactly is that?
Where is the swale?
Exactly.
Yeah, because chances are it's going to lay water.
We're,
Little pockets of water in there.
if you see the culvert, labeled as P1 going across the access road, for stormwater purposes, we're trying to bring some of the local drainage over to the basin. And that's just what it works out grade-wise, to not have to excavate too much material there, and to just get it from point A to point B. And where our elevations need to be for the basin, the receiving stormwater basin.
Is the grade of the roadside ditch along the access drive, does that hit 2%?
There may be swale profiles, I'll have to double check.
Yeah, I don't think there was a swale profile.
So is that a situation where we would need to request relief for the 2%, or?
If the longitudinal slope of the swale is not a minimum of 2%, then it would be a waiver to allow 1%.
Okay.
So, and I think you had that in your initial waiver letter that came in. But it just in general said proposed vegetated swales. It didn't specify whether that applied to all 3 or just the ones near the culvert, so.
Okay. We'll take another look at the
Okay.
swale longitudinal slopes, and
Yeah, so just, that's always, it's kind of why the 2% was put in there, because you say 1, sometimes that ends up at 3/4, you know, in the field. So when we say 2, sometimes it ends up as 1.5 in the field, but that's better than 3/4. So I would look at those, try to get them as close to 2 as you can. You know, I think they may be, Gary, thoughts on, you know, you'd be more inclined to look at a minimum 1.5 versus a minimum 1. You know, if they did need some
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a big deal, it's just that
relief, but,
it's gonna be hard to get the water to not lay in some spots, especially if you do any grading through there, because it's not gonna settle, in uniformly, so.
the other stormwater waiver would be related to some of those, infiltration, trenches, particularly the ones on, I think, the lower end. The detail you saw for the upper 2, trench 1 and 2, they had those distribution pipes throughout them. They were not proposing them for, I don't think they were proposing them for the other trenches. So if they don't, they were looking for a waiver for those, since the entering water into those trenches is via sheet flow, kind of evenly across the trench. We usually have the distribution pipes in cases where you're running all the roof leaders into one point, you know, one end of the infiltration trench or another. And in this case, you have an entry point allowance that kind of allows the whole trench to be used, so.
Infiltration was pretty bad. It was pretty slow.
Yeah, it was. Some cases it was 0. Where we can take advantage of the infiltration testing, that's where we have our volume control trenches. But we can't take volume control for all of them just because we don't have it.
Yeah, the basin has a very good infiltration rate, so it's just more, some of those stone trenches that are designed more to slow down the water to lower out of the site, it drains downward. That's good.
So basically, we're just dealing with velocity.
Mhm.
Right.
It's not really any increased load.
Right, yeah, we're just trying to slow it down, release it slowly, create a less erosive force.
I guess if in one of your quarterly inspections, if it's a problem, you could always add a pipe later at the end. Correct?
They could, they're probably putting the discharge pipes in them, but as opposed to, the way it would be for the actual distribution pipes along the length of the trench, which, yeah, they could always, if they see that, you know, water's taking another path, you know, and it's really concentrating in one area of the trench or the other, and part of that trench isn't being used, they could always add those distribution pipes later.
And the township always has a right to enter this problem.
Right.
Yeah, there'll be those on the plans, and we'll do the stormwater operations and maintenance, you know, normal agreement. So,
Yes, it's okay.
I think that's the only real stormwater comments they had. There'll be the typical project developers improvements agreement with the township for the coastal financial security, and then standard stormwater operations and maintenance agreement, and notes on the plans that indicate for each of these stormwater facilities who's responsible for the maintenance and, you know, what those steps are. So, you know, when they do their checks after heavy storms and on these quarterly site inspections, you know, what they're looking for and what needs to be repaired. So, does the planning commission have any other questions on the review letter or project? At this point,
size was?
2.7 megawatts AC.
and then in terms of the panel area, I think is about 7 acres, right? I think that's the summary on the,
Sounds right, just want to get you a more concise number.
Limit of disturbance, or the actual panel area?
well, I think, I'm trying to remember what you had on the cover sheet.
Looking at it here.
Yeah, I think somewhere you said 7.1 acres, that may be your limit of disturbance is 7.1, and I think your panels themselves are about 5 acres, because it was like a little over 200,000 square feet of panel surface.
It's too small.
That's one number I don't recall off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm a number person. All the way to the left side here, so. Well, that's.
Yeah, it's 4.9 acres.
4.9 acres of the actual panels. Okay.
How many, I have a question, how many, like, actual posts will we put into the ground? What are the size of those?
The exact number I don't have off the top of my head. What would have to happen is, once we get ready for like, actual construction, we have some tests done, geotechnical and also like full and pile testing, and that would actually determine the exact foundation. Sometimes it's the screws, sometimes it's the C-channel, sometimes it's the I-beam, and that engineering determines that foundation height, and then like a screw, for example, would be screwed into the ground, C-channel or I-beam would be pile driven. But I mean, generally speaking, you're probably looking at maybe anywhere from like 12 to 20 foot spacing is probably a rough number, but it's all going to be engineered and then that gets laid out. So it's kind of hard to give an exact quantified number right now.
Have you ever decommissioned one of these facilities? I wonder what that's gonna look like.
Hard to say. I mean, all the assets that I've built are operating, which is a good thing.
How long have you been doing this for?
Myself personally, 10 years.
10 years?
Yeah. I have a background in installation, also EPC, asset management, and development.
You're based out of New York,
Yes.
and how many do you have in Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania, we have about, I want to say 10 in development. Yeah.
Are you doing one in Schuylkill County?
What's that?
Are you doing one in Schuylkill County,
I don't think so.
Morrisburg?
No, that's not us. But we've been around since 2009. We really got our start in Massachusetts, actually. So we have a lot of assets and projects operating in Massachusetts. We actually have some projects in New Jersey on the Jets training facility, Arizona, Minnesota, Illinois. So we've been across the country, and we develop, we go in the long term.
Where are the panels made?
Usually overseas in Asia. Yep.
Except for China.
Asia, in the sense of China, Cambodia, it all varies. Unfortunately, as much as I think everybody would like American-made panels, it's just like with anything like computers and phones, just the infrastructure is all there to build it. But that is changing, and there's actually a lot of companies that are bringing their facilities into the U.S., setting up. So I think as time goes on, there'll be a heavy U.S. solar presence, but there's definitely, it's all about a shift.
As the technology improves with the panels, do you ever go into a solar field and remove the panels and put new technology, higher yielding panels in?
Well, most panels, I mean, they have, at least a 30-year lifespan. So and there's not much to them, right? They're silicon wafers, glass, you have your diodes and, your wires connecting everything, there's a metal frame. So the nice thing is that panels don't really go bad. I mean, occasionally you get the random one that you have to replace, and sometimes you get an exact replacement or you get something of like sort, right? But I would say, like, for example, over the past couple of years, panels have increased in wattage, but they've also increased in size. So like the power density is relatively the same. Like I said, panel might have been 5 feet tall, and now they may be 6 feet. And so they have a higher wattage, but they've just gotten larger.
Anything else on this from the planning commission? If you guys have anything else, and if not, we can talk to you guys when revise plans and make your submissions. Have you made your NPDS submission yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I had a question about the resubmission process as far as timeline, in order to get on next month's agenda, if that's possible. I know every township's different, so when would we need to get those into by to be on next month's agenda?
The deadline usually stays the same as 30 days prior, even if it's a resubmission, just due to workload. So April's meeting is April 24th, so I think we're past that 30-day point.
So
So-
you're looking at that by.
Yeah, so the deadline would probably be around April 22nd for the May 22nd meeting. But as I noted to Ariana, right? Okay. Lots of A names, but Ariana, as you guys are working through those revisions, particularly with the stormwater concepts that we talked about, feel free to email me interim, and we can make sure that you guys are on, the right track with things, as you come in before you make the official submission.
Right, we'll communicate. for
Yeah,
sure.
back to the township, so yeah, we can look at things in between, to try and make sure things are addressed before you would submit for that one,
Certainly.
and keep things moving.
Okay.
Is this general permit? NPDS general permit or individual?
They're all individual, usually kind of work because it's high quality.
I thought it drains to my home.
Yeah,
And you haven't submitted yet?
they have.
We have.
You have submitted, yes. You have to administrate with it complete?
I'm not sure if we don't have the administrative complete. We've gotten comments, I believe, but if you need a timeline, I can follow.
No, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't exactly recall when we got, I think we got incomplete comments, but we don't have completeness yet.
Yeah, if you can just share those DEP review letters like you get them.
Sure.
Like I mentioned to you on the phone, I generally like to see the first technical review letter from, the planning, from DEP. Sometimes before the township takes action, just to make sure DEP doesn't come up with anything major that's really going to significantly change
Yeah.
your layout and your site.
Make sure it's aligned at the end of the day.
Yeah, just
Isn't the township copied on the comment letter?
sometimes. It's DEP. There's no rhyme or reason. Okay. Okay, if you don't have anything else, then, we'll coordinate as we move on for that, the submissions.
See you in a-
Yeah.
No, I think
Yeah.
you're really saying.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Yeah, of course.
We have no conditional use, no zoning hearing board applications, and we do have two other business items, the first of which being is for the planning commission support of the Borough Council's planned repairs to the stormwater infrastructure on James Street from its intersection with Maple Street to its terminus at the northern end, along with the confirmation that the project is in compliance with Untitled Chapter and Untitled Borough's multi-municipal comprehensive plan. You can see in red that the borough is applying for Department of Community and Economic Development grant to be able to conduct these repairs. And because of the multi joint comp plan, both municipalities have to take action to support it. So the request is for a motion to authorize the planning commission chair to sign a letter in support of the Honeybrook Borough Council's plan to move forward with the repairs and also the grant from DCED.
Can you just make a motion for that?
Yeah, you can, if you want, there's draft letters here written, I can read them if you want to, but they in essence say what Gary says, basically just that at our meeting tonight, the planning commission voted to support the council's application
PDCD to perform stormwater upgrades on James Street. So, Erin, you make the motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Then the second item is very similar. This would be to authorize the planning commission chair to sign a letter of support for Brook Borough Authority's planned retrofitting of well number 8. Well number 8's water treatment plant on Subdivision Road, along with the confirmation that the project is in compliance with Brook Township. Brook Borough multi-municipal comprehensive plan, I believe well 8 is just right down the street here at the building. So it's the same request. You want to read the letter?
It's in essence
It's the same thing.
Yeah, same letter,
Change the name.
support the Brook Borough Authority's application of PCD for funds to retrofit well 8 on Subdivision Road. And again, they acknowledge compliance with the comp plan,
I'll make the
et
motion.
cetera.
A motion, need a second? Have a second? Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Yep. All right. We have nothing else on the agenda.
Mary, at the end of last month's meeting, I brought up, and I brought the parent of the course, that I think it would be a good idea if we had a comment period again. Go back to the way that we were doing,
Okay.
comment beginning and comment here.
We've got a lot of comments this evening.
Well,
So
some months, we're not gonna have comments.
is that something that can be our call, or is that something that has to come from the supervisors? Guess we can decide if we want to do that or not.
I think as chair, you have the ability to.
I don't want the ability. No, I'm kidding. Well,
I already
it's up,
helped you
it's,
tonight,
it's,
so.
it's up to the majority of the planning commission. If, you know, the majority of us want to see an extra public comment section on the agenda, we can do that. I mean,
Vote on it?
you know, I'm not sure. My own opinion is, if we open it up to anything that's on the agenda, what's it matter if there's one or two? They can have their public comment, somebody can make public comment at the beginning of the
Well,
meeting.
because there could be something that comes up during the meeting that they want to comment on.
That's just the way I see it. I see it that, I know on other boards I'm on, there's only one comment period, and it's open to whatever somebody wants to say.
I mean, you can speak of it if you want to, or however you want to do it.
How we feel about it? One comment period or two?
I'm fine with 2. I think not that many people show up anyway. If somebody comes in late and wants to comment at the end, I don't think we're gonna be sitting here all night. I don't think there's any harm in that.
Okay,
I would really
Susan,
ask.
you want to? Melissa?
I mean, are we talking about what's on the agenda, or they're going to be able to discuss whatever they want?
Well, if we would go back to 2, I think we would go back to, the first one would be what's on the agenda, and the second one would be anything anybody wants to bring up to the planning commission.
I don't know if I'm with the second, but I would limit their time.
No, wasn't there always a limit?
Well, there is something about everything.
Well, yeah, so then
That's
just
what
hold
the
the
minutes.
3-minute limit.
Yeah, we don't, that's not
We
so
don't
much
really
an
tell
issue
people
with the
you're
planning
bringing-
commission, I think it's more of an issue timeline with the supervisors, but the latest couple meetings out of that. So, Troy,
I'll do whatever it take one to do, let me carry the, let either way.
okay,
Two or one, it doesn't matter.
well, the majority is to go back to 2.
The people that did.
But the only thing I'll say, I don't think it's necessary, but if we're not seeing the comments after a couple meetings, yeah.
Well, I just think you say it, and if nobody has comments, it's done, you know what I mean?
But it makes the public feel better with the.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to depend on what, there hasn't been a lot of items on the agenda for the last several months. But we know from the past that there are times when there is a lot on the agenda, and there are things that are very controversial. So I just think it should be there. If no one wants to comment on it, then it will be very quick item on.
Okay, so starting next month, we'll tell Christie, will you tell Christie to put a second comment section on? The upcoming meetings are listed, so all we need now is a motion and a second to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Anybody opposed to adjourn? Okay, thank you.
That was Erin and then
See you, Troy.
Melissa for the second. Okay. I try when I can follow along on the speed of the meeting, do the minutes at the same time. I try. So, but sometimes I lose track of the simple motions of who they I did ask that question when they were redoing this, I'm like, where's the sign-in sheet and the pile going to be? Because, you know, it's changed, you need to know.
I don't know if the boss lady's here, but I wouldn't turn it down.
Okay.